Hello, everyone. Give me just a few seconds to be professional, okay? All right. Hello, my name is Melissa Imani, and I am the founder of Faith Financial LLC. And today we present to you the evolution of life insurance. Pause. Let's go. Okay, so now I get to be down to earth. I just figured I'd be professional for a little bit. Okay, so bear with me. I am really an insurance geek. Okay. So I'm a life insurance broker and undercover geek, which is why I'm presenting the evolution of life insurance. Really, I like to educate people, and I know it kind of sounds weird because most people are probably thinking, like, who cares about life insurance? But I promise you, there's some other undercover geeks out there like me who kind of want to know how life insurance works, how their policy works, what it's going to do after they're gone. Because, of course, you're not going to be here to know. So why not find out from now? Okay. But anyway, today we're not focusing so much on life insurance policies. We're really kind of going into just having fun with this, just really seeing where life insurance came about. And then maybe you'll really understand like the importance of it. Okay. So again, my name is Melissa. I am a geek. I got to put my right hand up and put it on the Bible or something. But I want to tell you guys, first and foremost, thank you for watching because I definitely appreciate this. You could be doing anything in the world, even rearranging your sock drawer, but you've decided to spend a few moments with me. I'll try and be quick, but it is some little good stuff in here. You guys might be like, I never knew that. So let's get into it. If you want, grab a cup of coffee or tea. I've got my ginger tea with a little creamer in there. It's super good. So anyway, grab a cup of coffee or tea, whatever suits you, and let's go. Next slide. I wanted to pretend like I really had an assistant. It's really just me clicking the buttons. But anyway, wanted to feel a little special, you know? All right, anyway, so these are the topics we're gonna get into today. One is, what is life insurance? The second thing is the history of life insurance. Now, that's where we're going to get into the meat and potatoes. And then the last thing is going to be the importance of life insurance. And I think once you understand the history and how this came about, then you'll understand why it's important. So let's go. Next slide. All right, so what is life insurance? I just kind of have a definition here and I'll read it and then I'll kind of break down the things that I've underlined just so you guys kind of understand, because I like to go to Life Insurance 101 down to the basics. And usually when I'm talking to families, they say, oh my gosh, Melissa, you explained that so well. No one's ever explained it to me so great. So that's where the geek in me just kind of comes out, puts on her cape and she's like, yeah, let's go. So life insurance, it's a legally binding contract between you and a life insurance company. The life insurance company is also known as the insurer, and you are usually the policy owner, okay, but not always. Now, life insurance policy, it guarantees that the company is going to pay you a sum of money, whatever the amount that is that you agree on, and that money is going to be paid out either to you or to what's called your beneficiaries, usually when you pass away, but you don't have to wait till you pass away. Sometimes you can actually access that money beforehand, okay? Now, there is a catch. I shouldn't say a catch. That sounds a little shady, so I won't say a catch. There is part of the agreement that they're gonna give you this money is that you pay what's called premiums. Okay, so you give a little, they give a little, and then everybody lives happily ever after. Okay, so what, let me break down a little bit. Legally binding contract. I do want to explain this because I have spoken to so many people, and when we're going through the process, sometimes there's health questions. Don't run and hide. Sometimes there's health questions. Most times there's health questions, but you don't always have to have that. Okay, but people say, why do you have to ask me all those questions? Just answer no. I'm healthy as a horse. Oh, if I had $1 for every time I heard that, I'd be rich. I'd be somewhere on the beach drinking a pina colada or something. Anyway, so because it is legally binding, every word really counts. Okay, so imagine going to court and you're sitting on the witness stand and they're cross-examining you. They're going to get you on one little word. Okay, so we've got to make sure, and it doesn't really have to be that intense, but I think of it as I want to cover you and your family, because if you pass away and you pass away too soon and they go and start looking into those questions or that application and your medical records and they see something, then they have the right, unfortunately, the contract says they may have the right not to pay out that full amount. Okay, so we want to make sure we hold the insurance companies accountable so that they have no reason to not pay. Okay, and it's not that difficult, but we do have to do it correctly. Okay, so it's a legally binding contract. The insurance company is also known as the insurer. The policy owner, that's not always the same person as the insured. The policy owner could be the owner of the policy. It could be the person who we're insuring, and it could also be the payer. Okay, so the insured person can be any of those three people. Most times the person being insured is the owner and they're also the payer. Okay, but they don't always have to be. Keep that in mind. Okay. Again, the policy, the contract, it just guarantees that at some point when you need it and you're not able to, the insurance company is guaranteed they're going to pay out to you or your family. Okay. Beneficiaries, I do want to touch on that, because beneficiaries, you can always update that. You can do it every day if you want. Don't do that. You'll probably make your agent really upset. They won't say it, but you can update your beneficiaries. Okay. Little tip for everybody, always make sure you have at least 2 beneficiaries. Okay. You don't know how many times I've heard husband and wife, they only have each other. God forbid you're both going to crash at the same time. Company has no one to pay out to. Okay. So make sure that you have at least 2. Okay. Good to have a backup. All right. Now, as far as the premiums are basically monthly payments. It could be paid quarterly, annually, semi-annual. You could pay it for up until you turn 100. You could pay it, you could select 10 years, that you only want to pay it for 10 years and then you're done. You could select 7 years. You could select 20 years. You can actually select how long that you want to pay it. Not every policy can do that. So, but it is something that, you could always ask your agent. Okay. So you don't have to pay it your entire life, but the policy will cover you, or should cover you, your entire life. It really depends on what you want the policy to take care of. Okay. All right. That's a whole lot said in one paragraph. Sorry, guys. All right. Next slide. Aha. This is my friend here, Gaius Marius. Okay, that's not my friend, okay? He's probably long gone before I even was thought of. But anyway, that's the best picture I could find of him. Next time, I'll try to get him some eyeballs, but this time, it is what it is. So we're on section 2. This is the meat and potatoes of this presentation. This is where we talk about the history of life insurance. Now, the reason why I put Mr. Gaius, his picture up here, is because he was, I think, a Roman general. I'm going to read my notes first, and then I'll kind of break it down. So life insurance, it can be actually traced back to 600 to 100 BC. That's before Christ. Now, in ancient Greece and Rome, in ancient times, the concept of life insurance was initiated by Mr. Gaius Marius, okay? And he was a military general. When they had all those battles, you can see in the next picture right there. Of course, a lot of people were dying. Unfortunately, that's what war is. So he's conceptualized this sort of like a burial club. Not the club you really want to be in, but it was needed. So he conceptualized that burial club. And hold on, assistant, get back here. Okay. I tell you, good help is hard to find. So anyway, he came up with the concept of this burial club. And basically it was where fellow soldiers, as basically an act of dignity, they would bury their fellow soldiers, right? You don't just leave them out there for the vultures to get. That's kind of gross. And then, you know, they would have whatever type of funeral or ceremony that they had back then. But basically, that's what he did. And so that burial club, that concept, eventually grew into a more organized manner, which is called life insurance. Okay. All right. My assistant is moving faster than I want to, but I'll have a talk with her after. Okay. All right. Let me make sure we're on the right place. Perfect. All right. So I did mention that as time went on, that concept grew into what's called life insurance. So going back to the 17th century, Lloyd's of London, which is one of my favorite insurance companies, came up with a little bit more organized method of life insurance, okay? And Mr. Edward Lloyd, he actually owned a coffee shop along the waterways in London. And the people, before they went on these merchant ships, they would actually sit down and have conversation about the voyage that they were about to do. These voyages lasted weeks, probably months, I would imagine sometimes. And they had to kind of organize. So part of organizing was, how do we protect our assets? Again, insurance came into play, okay? So first it was called Edward Lloyd's Establishment. It was really a coffee shop. There were several little coffee shops, and I would kind of think of them as like little 7-Elevens or Starbucks, but back in the day, they were called coffee shops, okay? And it was basically where the merchants congregated. They did start to take care of business there, you know, because you've always got to have that meeting place, and that's where you take care of business. So that's what they did. But you can see in this little picture here, this person was actually in business mode. And so that's probably where they took care of a lot of, you know, the insurance related and making things legal. So now these conversations that they were having and this business meetings they were having, these are probably like the antecedents that, like I said, eventually turned into the more formal life insurance, okay? Now, eventually, Mr. Lloyd created an association, a life insurance association, which was called Society of Lloyds. Now, that was the original name. It eventually, I think, I'm not sure exactly when, but eventually it became what's known as Lloyd's of London, okay? And now, you had to have what's called underwriters. They're the ones that determine whether this is a good risk to take. And they were probably the ones that financially backed it as well. So the underwriters, they were really kind of the richer people in society. And because they had money, they were able to take on that kind of risk. Okay, so as you can see, it's kind of like over time, this has evolved, because I'm sure underwriters today aren't necessarily the richest. They're not the Rockefellers or the Jay-Z and Beyoncés of our society. But back in the day, they were, okay? Now, I will say Lloyd's of London today has expanded, and it now offers a bunch of like tailor-made policies for customers in every sector. And just to mention a few, I think they have over 60 lines of insurance. Now, they insure things like fine art, legal expenses, the Better Business Bureau, malpractice lawsuits, when your doctor puts your toe on your finger. Anyway, you know what I'm talking about, malpractice. They insure political risks. That's something that I would have never thought of. They also insure things from terrorism. They insure yachts. They insure cargo. Like, I wish I had a yacht. Not yet, maybe one day. Or maybe I can just rent one day, who knows. They insure cargo. Now, speaking of that, so that was really where they got their start, but they still do that today. They still have cruise lines like Norwegian, Royal Caribbean, Carnival, that need insurance for, God forbid, if something happened like the Titanic. Who would insure that? So Lloyd's of London would, okay? Now, I will say, speaking of cargo, there is going to be a video that I do a deep dive into Lloyd's of London, and we go over one of their probably most historical, when we talk about cargo, historical cargo. And this is the transatlantic slave trade, okay? And even researching this, I never really thought about that, but yeah, they had insurance on the cargo. And what kind of really caught my attention is what was considered cargo was also the slaves. So before you turn up your nose and turn the channel, that was back then. It was what people did, what businesses did, and I'm not making any excuses at all, but it was part of business, okay? When I do the deep dive, you'll get to see the inner workings of Lloyd's of London, their perception now, and they actually have a huge thing where they're basically, I want to say, asking for forgiveness and saying, hey, this is how we look at it now, you know, and how can we make amends? Okay, so stay tuned for that upcoming video. I don't want to get too much into it now, but we'll get into it, okay? Next. Look at that, my assistant, she's on point now. Okay, so next we're looking at, we jumped into the 18th century, 1759, as America is starting to form. We don't just have a bunch of little people wandering around by the waterways. Now we have colonies starting to be designated, okay? Now, I will say, as we get more organized, the Presbyterian Ministers Fund was developed. And basically what that means is that churches now started to get their hand into how can we protect families. And of course, you know, that's really the backbone of what the church is. You know, it is to spread the gospel, but it's also to make sure that we protect and we serve one another, okay? And I love that concept. So the Presbyterian Ministers Fund is believed to be the first life insurance company in the New World, okay? Let me just read through, because some of this I already know, so I'm just kind of speaking comfortably. Now, what they did is the members of the company, they paid a fixed annual sum, okay? So they paid money into it every, I don't know if they paid it yearly, but they did have an amount that they were supposed to pay, just so they kind of have an idea and had some organization. Now the dividends, that means kind of the surplus from that money, was paid out to the wives and the children of the people that passed away, okay? Now, and back then in 1759, the men were really considered the breadwinners, right? The women and the children didn't go out and earn an income. So if the man passed away, of course, somebody had to take care of the women and children, hence the role of the church, okay? Now, I will tell you, over time, there began a little tension where the clergy, they started looking at this as kind of gambling. They felt like, you know, here it is, the church is assuming what risk is greater than another, and then people are putting money in based on what risk is greater than or less than, and here is people winning the jackpot, the wives and children winning the jackpot. So the clergy started to look at this as gambling, and they weren't too happy with it. So you can imagine there was a little tension, okay? So life insurance still continued to evolve over time, okay? And we'll go on to the next slide and see what happens. All right, so now we kind of fast forward. Sorry, we jumped a few centuries ahead. I know we went from, like, we skipped a whole century, but let's go back a century. In the late 19th century, around 1895, there was maybe one or two companies that began to look at the importance of insuring women and children, okay? Very big, because remember, we weren't valued at that time. We were taken care of, but we weren't valued enough to say our life was worth an insurance policy, okay? So around 1895, that's when one or two insurance companies that I know of that are still around today actually started saying, let's insure women and children as well, okay? Now, I didn't document those, and I probably should have, but anyway, just to keep the video, the presentation as short as possible, I'm jumping into another one of my favorites, and this is Mr. Alonzo Herndon. Okay, love, love, love. When I got into the industry about 7 years ago, he was one of the people, now of course he wasn't alive, but he was one of the people that I looked at and said, this is amazing. And why? Because Mr. Herndon, as you see on the slide, it says he was born a slave and eventually became one of Atlanta's wealthiest Black citizens. He was a millionaire back in 1905 or 1927, as I believe when he passed away. But imagine being a millionaire back then. And he was a chocolate man. Okay, now he did start off as a slave. He was born into slavery. He eventually became an entrepreneur, owned a barbershop, but he's most known for being the founder and president of what's known today as Atlanta Life Insurance Company, still based out of Atlanta, Georgia. Okay, so just a little tip, he was born about 40 miles away from Atlanta, Georgia, and let me make sure I didn't miss anything. Now, I will tell you, in his life, he believed in supporting local institutions, charities, advancing African-American businessmen, and just making sure community life was the best that it could be. He lived in a Black area, Auburn Avenue, and he believed in elevating his community. So that is huge. Again, this is one of my favorites, so stay tuned. I am going to do another upcoming video where I do a deep dive in Mr. Alonzo Herndon's life, and we get to see a little bit more about him. So definitely stay tuned for that in the future, okay? Next video, I did a part 2 of him right here because it's so much in this video that I had to get into it. I live in Florida, but I love Georgia. I'm licensed all across the nation, but Georgia's, I swear I should have been born in Georgia as much as I love it. But this is a little picture on, I guess depending on where you're looking at it, on the left side, you'll see this is the first branch office of Atlanta Life Insurance Company. This was built back in 1905. And over on the right side, you'll see the current headquarters. Next time I go to Georgia, I'm definitely going to visit this because it, to me, is a historical site. And you can see on the bottom right-hand corner of the building, they have a picture of Mr. Herndon. Then through the windows, they have some pictures of other historical people. So I would love to go and visit this. I definitely will. If you guys are in Georgia and you get a chance to, definitely go by and see it. But it is located, let me see, I did put it in my notes. The company was originally called Atlanta Mutual Insurance Company. Okay, that's a bit of trivia. It was in 1923, they changed their name to Atlanta Life Insurance Company. Okay, and it was originally located at what is now known as 148 Auburn Avenue. And again, a little trivia, I always like to give some trivia. A little trivia, Auburn Avenue is located in the neighborhood that's fondly called Sweet Auburn. It is a world famous place, and it's the heart of Black enterprise and the civil rights movement. Now, In 1956, Fortune magazine called it the richest Negro street in the world. So I've been there a few times. I've probably passed by this building and not known what it was. But next time I go back to Georgia, I'm definitely going with intention to go back to Auburn Avenue and see this building. And if I can get inside without jumping through the windows, I absolutely will. And I'll probably take some pictures and show you guys. But anyway, so that's it. Stay tuned. I'm going to do a little deeper dive on Mr. Alonzo Herndon in the future. Okay, next. All right, so now moving into, we're in the 20th century, 1911, AXA Equitable. This insurance company is known in history as drafting the first group life insurance policy for a company, a leather company called Passcode. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, and I should get the correct, I should have called them and listened to how they answer the phone because they're still in business. So anyway, just so you guys know, group life insurance company, what that means is instead of it being a life insurance policy on an individual, it's actually something that the employer does. And it's usually what's called a renewable term, which means as long as you're employed there, they'll keep renewing that policy. You quit, get sick, transfer, retire, anything, that policy could be gone. So it's great while you're healthy and able to work, and it's usually free or close to free, but if you pass away or leave or anything, they can end that policy like that. So it's good to have, but definitely always want to have something else, okay? But AXA Equitable, this insurance company saw that life insurance was booming, it was great. They said, hey, let's go to businesses and let's start insuring all the employees. So that's what they did. Now, going down to the pictures, because I love some pictures, I'm a visual person. The first picture you see is in 1910. This was their building. This is where they conducted. It's a pretty sexy building, if I must say. I kind of like this building. Now, I did bring it full circle. I didn't get a 2022 picture, which is where we are now, almost 2023. But this building that was built in 2009 in New York is still around. So this is one of their headquarter offices. If you go to the third picture, this is actually an ad for the leather company. And this was back from 1905. And I just thought it was cute. Again, I'm all about trivia too. So if you read the ad, I thought when I was reading it, I said to myself, I said, you know what, they must not have had any kind of FDA regulations or anything, because how can you put in your ad, will not burn? Imitations burn violently. And pretty much everything, leather, cloth, is gonna burn. So unless it's made out of metal or something, I don't know if I wanna put my tushy on some kind of leather sofa. That's crazy. But anyway, I guess it was good marketing. So, and then also, if you guys can see down to the bottom, it says, it wears longest, does not crack, is always bright and clean, and is germ and waterproof. Like, did they mean germ free? Or did they mean just germ? Because if they meant germ free, that might not be truthful. So anyway, but it was a good little ad that I found and I thought it was pretty interesting. So I'm sure it's sold because company's still in business. Now, last picture, 2019, they are still in New Jersey, and this is one of their warehouses where they actually manufacture their products. So I thought that was a cute, cool little video. All right, next slide. All right, now, as we continue, I just did a few quick milestones, and we'll go over 1935, 1944, 1945, because these were kind of landmarks. Now, as the country evolved, we went from just little businesses on the waterways to colonies to expanding. The government, of course, saw life insurance. This is a booming business. Despite what the clergy said, you know, the church had a little issue. So if the church wasn't going to run with it, guess what? Uncle Sam was. He said, I got you. And so Uncle Sam enacted his version of And I want to say this the best way that I can. This was Uncle Sam's idea of saying, we're going to protect women and children, the widows and, you know, the orphans. And so Uncle Sam enacted the Social Security Act. Okay, that was its goal, is to protect retired people, unemployed people, widows, orphans, all of that good stuff, right? And it's still pretty much the goal today. Okay, so this was the country's way of getting money set aside, but instead of asking people to pay premiums, they went to the businesses and said, we'll just snatch those taxes. We'll make taxes instead of premiums. So instead of it being voluntary, now it's involuntary, because I don't know, anybody who doesn't pay taxes, guess where you're going? I should have put a little picture, jail. Exactly. So anyway, Uncle Sam got his hand in the pot. He said, this is a good thing. And he got his hand in the pot and he created Social Security Act and a way to take taxes, take money out of our pocket for the greater good of our society. Let me say that. Okay, so 1944 realized when Uncle Sam got his hand in it, they said, you know what? This is so chaotic. Everything is different. Prices are different. One state is charging this, one state is charging that, one is paying out this, all kind of different things. So they brought it to the Supreme Court, which is the know all be all, right? I'm just joking, but they're the highest court in the land. Okay, so they brought it to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, we'll take over this, we'll organize it. And then if you can see, probably less than 12 months later in 1945, they said, no, that's more of a headache than we ever wanted to do. So they passed it over and said, Congress, create something where we put this headache in the hands of each state. Let each state manage their own stuff in their backyard. So of course, Congress passed the McCarran-Ferguson Act. And of course, that put each state now can regulate how life insurance is conducted in their own state, okay, which is a good thing. Now, as a life insurance agent, even though I reside in Florida, I'm licensed across the nation, which basically means I have to follow every state's laws. So, which is not bad, because on some level there is unity, and especially as an agent, and what we can do and what we can't do. Okay, so even though it seems separated, it's really still very cohesive. Okay, all right, next slide. Next slide. Okay, she must have been having a little coffee break. Let me have a little tea break. All right, so now we are up to modern day, between 1945 and now. Pretty much things have been kind of flowing, so nothing major. So I'm going to jump into present day. Now, since I've been offering and servicing life insurance products, I've heard so many people say, can you come to my house? I don't have a bank account. Can you just come back and pick up the money? And that look is, go to picture number 1. You see Mr. Rogers? I named him Mr. Rogers. He was your friendly neighborhood life insurance salesman. He came around every day with a smile, and at the end of the month, he came with that same smile to pick up the check or cash. Okay. Now, times have evolved, technology has evolved. So do we really have your Mr. Rogers neighborhood? Yeah, we to some extent, yeah. Now, we do still have life insurance representatives that will go and sit at home, sit at your kitchen table, which you can see in the picture number 2, sit at your kitchen table and go over the policies, explain them and everything. Do we come back and collect the check or collect cash every month? Absolutely not. And if you have an insurance person that is coming back and saying, yeah, give me cash, you may either have a very outdated process, or I don't know, I would check that person's ID, okay? So we kind of have evolved from that. Well, not kind of, we have a lot. So we do still have insurance agents that will come to your home and sit at your kitchen table and go over the policies with you. I have clients who love the face-to-face. I do as well, okay? But I will also say we do have technology where we can do everything right over the computer, right over the phone. Some people like it, some people don't. What I will say, it is a very efficient and safe and convenient way to do this. Now, these insurance companies that have made millions and billions of dollars, I promise you, they don't want to go out of business. So they have invested into all types of infrastructure that encrypts things and codes things and everything, so your information is safe, okay? You know, and I would always say, first and foremost, get a life insurance agent that you trust, okay? Get one that you trust, that has ethics, that, you know, of course, there's rules and regulations that we have to follow, but get somebody that you trust, okay? And I will tell you, life insurance agents are not, they're out there to make money, but they're not out there to scam people, okay? So whenever you're looking at a life insurance agent, if you're not sure who they are, get their agent number, find out who they work for, go to the federal site and put in their number and see if their name pops up. Call the insurance company that they say they work at and give their name, give their agent number, make sure that they are legitimate, okay? Not a problem with that. When a life insurance agent should never be offended with that. I get that well, not so much in person, because I've spoken to them and kind of gotten to know them over the phone, or usually gotten a referral, but also over the phone when people couldn't see me during the pandemic, people couldn't see me. So sometimes people would say, even though the call came in or they called in, they would still want to verify who I am. I'd give them the name of the company, they'd call the home office, they'd give my agent number and verify, oh yeah, she is real, okay. And then they'd call me back. So definitely make sure you're at peace. That is our goal, is to make sure that you are comfortable with us, you're at peace with us, because ultimately this is a very important decision and you want to make sure that your agent and the insurance company is going to be there for you when you need it, okay? All right, so this is what pretty much it for this one. And okay, next. All right, now we're kind of finished with section 2, which is the history of life insurance. You guys can kind of see that why it's important is because life insurance protects you, it protects your family. Unfortunately, we don't live in a world where we don't need money, we don't need finances. We do, okay? So you want to make sure that if you don't have it, you can't self-insure yourself, you've got something, you've got a safety net, and that's pretty much what it is, okay? Now, the importance of life insurance can not just protect the person, it can protect some of your assets. In picture number 1, if you have a home, if you have a business, I will even say if you rent, why not cover that? You still have a payment to make. If you rent someplace and you have to pay your rent every month, you could even leave money that it pays. Let's say your spouse is living with you, your children are living with you. It can give money to pay that rent, maybe for the next 12 months, the next 2 years, 3 years. So you can do that as well. It can cover household expenses. So keep that in mind. The second picture, and I love this one. This one just looks like they have to be related. I don't know where I got this picture from, but I will say this family has to be related. Look at dad and daughter. This is the core of life insurance. It is to protect people, what matters most. If grandpa got ill, if he passed away, if daughter had to take off from work and take care of him, guess what? The policy is going to pay. It's going to help. Okay. Third picture, and I like to think as a progressive society, we're not just looking at, oh, let's just pay for the funeral and then that's it. We also want to make sure, what can I leave for my children? What can I leave for my spouse? So now we get into talking about building generational wealth. Okay. That's something that I love. I have a business. I want to be able to allow that business to continue on, whoever takes over the business, for it to continue on. So I'm protecting my legacy as well. So I have even heard, and I'll give you a little trivia, I've heard of people who have taken life insurance policies. Maybe they got it on someone, a family member, that person passed away. They took that money and started a business. I know somebody who started a funeral home. I know somebody who started a trucking company. So could that money, even though it might not be a lot, it could be $20, $25, $50,000, it could be life-changing. So think about that. How do you want to leave your people? I always say, this is one of my mottos I live by. I always want to leave people better than when I met them. So consider that. Next. All right, so these are questions that I've asked myself. When I got my first policy, I asked myself these questions. What changes would my loved ones have to make if I died prematurely? Okay, I'm a single parent, and granted, my children are grown, they're adults, but when they were smaller, I would always think to myself, if something happened to me, what would happen to them? Okay, so I got a life insurance policy. I have multiple. But I got a life, and I'm still alive. Must mean my children love me. But I got a life insurance policy basically to make sure that, God forbid anything happens to me, my children would still be able to live the lifestyle that I was able to provide for them, probably financially better. But I wanted to make sure that they weren't going to be orphans. They weren't going to be passed around from family member to family member, and they weren't going to have to not do some of the activities that I was able to provide for them because I'm not there, okay? The other question I would say, what changes would I have to make if someone that I love passed away prematurely? Now, we never want to think of that, and I will say it's not a favorite thought of mine, but I did give it some thought. I put a policy in place, and then I no longer have to think of it. My family knows exactly where I keep my life insurance policies. The last time I really gave some thought was at the beginning of the pandemic. I looked them over, made sure that I actually did a policy review on myself. And I shared it with my loved ones so they know exactly, something happens to me, this is where you go, this is what you do. I have everything there for them, okay? So these are questions that I would say, ask yourself, if something happened to you, how would your loved ones function? Would the next month when the mortgage or the rent is due, would they be looking around like having to go live with Uncle Jojo? Or would they be able to, just kind of maintain for a few months and allow them to grieve and just kind of focus on, just exhale for a minute. So think about that. A lot of times when people don't have something in place, and even if it's just to pay final expenses, now you start putting things on credit cards. Even, let's say, a burial that may today cost $15,000. If you don't have a simple final expense policy in place, your family now is going to have to, funeral homes, they will not bury the person unless they're paid. You're going to sell stuff in the house. How long is that going to take? Do you want to leave grandpa on ice for months? I don't think not. Or the family, to save face, may go and put it on credit cards. Now you got $15,000 worth of debt on a credit card. Do you know that credit card debt, if you pay the minimum, you end up paying at least 4 times that actual bill? So instead of a funeral costing $15,000, now you're actually paying more like, what is that? 36, 60,000. Had to do the math. Took a second. I don't want to be wrong on camera. But anyway, who wants to pay $60,000 for a funeral that they could have paid $15,000? And maybe they just made one payment. Maybe they made a few payments, but $15,000. I want to pay as least as I have to, okay? So keep that in mind. We never want to be a burden for our family. So I always advise people have something in place. Even if you're not trying to leave your family millions, have something in place so you're not leaving them a bill, okay? Next. All right, so this slide, I really don't like it, but I did include it because if this was all fun and games, it wouldn't be reality, all right? So this slide actually shows reality, right smack in my face, which I'm not crazy about at all, but this is important. So on the serious side, in my researching, I came across this slide, and usually I'll look at graphs and statistics and just kind of see, hey, how accurate are they? On this one, as I was looking it over, and I really didn't focus too much on COVID. I've had family members, friends, coworkers pass away from COVID, so I know it's real. My heart goes out to everybody who's, pretty much all of us have had an effect of it. But I really didn't focus on that. I'll tell you what I focused on. On the column, on the top row, it gives the age. And on the column that says ages 45 to 54, I actually fall in that age now. But almost 30 years ago, my mom was 51. And when I looked at this, it says in that column for people between that age, and this is only going back to current statistics, January to September of 2022. But it's still true today. 24,948 people have passed away in this age range. The #1 cause of death, cancer. That number kind of hit me hard because it was true for me. It's true for me. My mom was 51. And I'm a little bit past that now, but I think to myself, I've spoken to so many people who said, oh, I don't need life insurance. I'm not ready to look at that yet. Da, 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 da. You know, oh, I have it at my job. But my mom had, I'm sure she had coverage at her job. I would imagine maybe. But when she became ill and had colon cancer, the doctors gave her 3 months to live. She could not work any longer. After that first surgery that they had to go in and clear blockage, she no longer could work. So guess what happens to her group coverage? Gone. Now, if that's the only thing that she had planned on, she would have had nothing. And those next 7 months that she lived, she would have probably stressed more and more about, how is my family going to pay for this? I planned on getting some coverage. And I would just, let me pause for a second and do a little PSA, okay? Guys, even though my mom's death certificate, it says cause of death, colon cancer, I would venture to say 95% of the cause of her death was stress, okay? I have learned from my mom, I try to eliminate stress in my life as much as possible. Not a pro at it, but it is such a, it's like that little thing on my shoulder that says, reduce the stress, reduce the stress. Stress will bring on, even if you're, maybe my mom could have been predisposed to cancer. I think we all are. Breathing air, pollution, drinking water, what's in the water, taking medication, not taking medication, eating pesticides on the fruits and vegetables. We're all somewhat susceptible to illnesses. But even if she was susceptible to it, I believe stress exacerbates all of those conditions. Everything that you see on this chart, stress is going to bring it on. If it's a migraine and you're stressed, that headache goes into a migraine. If it's a upset stomach and you're stressed, guess what? Ongoing stress, now you've got ulcers. Now you've got IBS. You've got something. So guys, whatever you do, try to reduce the stress out of your life. Not saying that it won't ever be there, but don't have ongoing stress, if at all possible. If you do, make some changes and get a life insurance policy. Because eventually one day, with or without stress, we're all going to transit, okay? So anyway, enough about this slide. I hated it, didn't want to put it in there, but if I didn't, then I wouldn't be being accurate, okay? So next, we're almost done, guys. All right, so now we're coming to the end. You might be asking yourself, what should you do? Okay, now first, I want to say, If you've gotten anything from this presentation, you should like, share, subscribe, follow, do all those things that we do on social media. Do them. I definitely appreciate that. That helps get the word out. It helps people protect their families. And of course, it helps me, okay? Because this is what I do, all right? So hopefully I was a blessing to you, to your family. Please share it with other people. That's all I can say. Next. Okay. Okay, let me go back. So first question, what should you be doing? Like, share, subscribe, follow, all that good stuff. Then you should book a free consultation with moi today, okay? Now, I try to make this super easy for you. You can call me, text me. You can, everybody has cell phones now, so you can text. I respond to texts. Calling and texting is probably the easiest way to get in contact with me. Please don't call me at 2 a.m. Years ago when I started doing this, I would tell people, listen, call me anytime. I meant like if somebody passes away, your family should call me at 2 a.m. Did I not have somebody call me at 2 a.m.? And no, it wasn't a booty call, but somebody called me at 2 a.m. and I answered. They were probably like, I thought she was joking. No, I wasn't. But I will say now, years in, don't call me at 2 a.m. Call me, text me pretty much 6 days a week. Sunday, USA, okay? Unless it's life and death, okay? Then call 911 first, then call me, okay? So call, text, email, and I put my phone number down here, 754-444-1957. My email, melissa@faithfinancialllc.com. You can email me. I don't get back as quick as possible, as well, let me say, as quick as a call or a text. But if you had some questions and you wanted some answers or something, you can email me. You can go to my website, which is same name, www.faithfinancialllc.com, and just kind of browse around. Nothing spectacular there, but if you're on there, there is an option that you can actually contact me and it will send me an email, okay? I do have an Instagram. I don't use it much. I will be using it more, but you can go to my IG, and this is all together for the sake of grammatics. It would not let me put the entire thing together. So you'll see there's a space between faith and financial, but in real life, well, I don't know if IG is real life, but on IG, it's all together, faithfinancialllc.com_IG, okay? And last but not least, and I might have some other social media things out there, but I do have a podcast, but that's nothing to do with insurance. That's just like my Bible study. Anyway, you can go to my Facebook business page. It is at Faith Financial LLC, and you'll see some of these videos. And I think I put YouTube. I am on YouTube as well, and it is under Faith Financial LLC, so you can find me there. I've got to add that to this. So, and I love my little picture here. It has on Instagram and Facebook, and I think this is how the younger generation says, you can slide into my DMs for business, okay? And I'll respond back. Again, the best way, because I do have a few platforms and I do it all myself right now because my focus is on just helping families. But I do like to educate, so I did decide to do some videos. But best way, if you really want to speak with me and just have a free consultation or ask a question, call or text me, okay? Next. Now, thank you guys. Just to wrap it up, I just want to say, I hope you enjoyed this presentation. It was my pleasure, my honor to share with you. I know, again, I am a little nerdy, so that hence the evolution of life insurance. Hopefully you got a little, not just trivia, but some things that you might say, I never knew that before. This is pretty interesting. Again, stay tuned. I'm going to do a follow-up segment on Lloyd's of London, also on Mr. Herndon. So that's going to be pretty interesting. I'm excited to do it. Again, I'm a geek. But I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you guys for joining, for being here. Hope you got something from it, and share with your family, friends, and that is it. All right. Have a super blessed day. Let me figure out how to end this now. Okay.